Hi there and welcome back, friends of a thoughtful gaming experience. This is your host, Emmanuel Can. And we're back to Let's Play and Explore Torment Tides of Numenera in the early access patch 1 edition. We're just down here in the temple of the Dendra where supposedly there is a corpse somewhere of someone who died by the sorrow. Now, we want to find that corpse, and we want to examine it to find new traces of the sorrow, and we want to tell a surface dweller named Sophie, the sculptor, about it, because he wants to portray the sorrow. And that's why we're down here in this temple full of bones. Now, the Dendra see here, the devourer of wrongs and gazay. What are they about? They are about eating corpses and gaining knowledge. So, yeah, that's what they're about. So, let's see where this leads. Maybe we will have to rest in between. But let's see first. First exploration will be good, I think. And we still have at least some intellect. 2 points should be enough for at least one conversation. What's this? This pushcart holds the emaciated corpse of a pauper. His toes and fingers have been chewed to the bone. The bed of this old pushcart is stained with blood and other more unpleasant things. A plump middle-aged woman lies upon the slab. Her head has been stripped of flesh, her eyes placed neatly on the slab behind it. Under the cloth lies the corpse of a man in dirty, mismatched armor. He appears to have been stabbed dozens of times. Ah, the joys of cannibalism. A teenage girl lies dead on this slab. Most of her bones are shattered, suggesting that she fell from a great height. Ooh, this may be cast off, maybe. We nearly died like that as well. But now let's talk to the devourer of wrongs. Hi there. Guess you're cheery. This enormously fat figure stands alone, motionless. Because of its eyeless metal mask and the obscuring layers of devices and filters and hoses it wears, you can't be sure if it's a man or a woman, or even if it is entirely human. Its thick neck bulges and clenches as if it was chewing something. You get the feeling that despite the blank mask, it is watching you. What is your role in the Dendra? I attend executions and eat the condemned once they are dead. Their meat shows me the extent of their guilt and gives me their memories, revealing motive, method, accomplices, and secrets. The Dendra have always performed this service for the city. We want to find out things. Yeah, we're not going to condemn this man for the crazy stuff he does. We won't eat something ourselves, but preserving the knowledge, that sounds good for an intellectual like us. Preserving the knowledge of the dead is a worthy ideal, even if it's dead criminals, I suppose. Knowing the motivations of criminals helps the city prevent future crimes before they happen. Can I ask you some questions about the murderer loose in the Underbelly? No. Imbitu has forbidden us from involving ourselves in the investigation. You glance at Imbitu. The leader of the Dendra is picking his rotten teeth with a long, curving fingernail. Why won't Imbitu let me ask you about the murderer? That is for him to answer, not me. Scanthos, do not question Imbitu. Alright, thank you and farewell. And there's a man named Imbitu here. Alright, but let's talk to the other guys maybe. Well, if he's the leader, we should talk to him, right? That's probably what we have to do. The corpse of an elderly man lies under the shroud. His face is peaceful, and you see no obvious cause of his death. And here, this altar is made entirely of human bones, with a carved skeletal head mounted above. Live maggots wriggle in its empty eye sockets. This corpse is in a wretched state, its head and limbs crushed to pulp, with bits of wood and debris embedded in the skin. This corpse has been partially eaten, gnawed by human teeth. The body cavity is splayed open and most of the organs are gone. And now let's talk to Imbitu. What do you know? At first glance, it would be easy to assume that this man is dying of some wasting disease or starvation. He's little more than a too-tall skeleton, wrapped in translucent flesh and a tattered robe. His hands are essentially bony claws, and yet he beams at you, his sunken eyes glittering with suppressed laughter and feverish life. Tread carefully, dear, Callistic murmurs. Imbitu is friendly enough, but he's also intelligent, frighteningly so. Do not try to lie to him. Imbitu smiles. His teeth are a muddy brown. I know you, he says. So many eyes have lingered on that tattoo. That noble brow. He reaches for your forehead with a shivering skeletal finger. Well, what can happen, right? Let him touch your forehead. His fingertip traces a hot line over your tattoo. Yes, he says. Now I remember. Old Kirisa once saw you out of the corner of her eye. A week before his accident, Ulorimar sold you a small bag of, he breathes, closing his eyes, sugar-dusted almonds. But those aren't the only two. No, you drift through countless lives, altering and ending them, never leaving a name. He draws in his breath. Oh, I can't stand mysteries. Love them, but can't stand them. Who are you? I'm not the woman you think I am. That was someone else. Imbitu says. The same face, the same tattoo. But yes, different eyes. Perhaps you have a secret twin. He coughs gently against the back of his hand. So, what brings you to the chapel of the Dendra, Oho? Scan thoughts. So she returns, cast off. What happened this time, I wonder? A sculptor told me that your people may have found a man killed by a strange creature, is what we want to ask, and Folsom also. But we first want to know about him and the call. Tell me about yourself. Oh, there isn't much to tell. I've spent most of my years in this little chapel, he says, casting a fond look around. The Dendra her has rather consumed my life. Scan thoughts. Consumed my... I'll have to remember that one. Why did you join the Dendra her? Well, that is a good question, a very good question. I congratulate you on asking it. He rubs his hands together with a papery sound. I'm afraid, however, that outsiders rarely understand what call us to the Dendra or her. So, with apologies, I do not think I will answer. But I'd still like to know why you joined the Dendra or her. And I would love to tell you, he says, and it is clear that he would, but it is rather tangled in the mysteries of our order. I simply cannot indulge you again. My apologies. Let's talk about something else then. On to more interesting topics than an old man's past, he says, flashing a stained grin. Lovely. Tell me about your cult. We worship the great queen Sarlavun, lady of maggots, goddess of entropy, and guardian of the empty barrier, he says, then pauses, tapping a muddy tooth thoughtfully. Although worship is the wrong word, perhaps. He points to the altar nearby. It displays a skull with flat, unforgiving eyes buried in its hollow sockets. She waits on the other side of death with her billions of squirming children. They devour whatever passes into their realm, and rightfully so. Everyone must eat. His eyes twinkle fondly. But whatever she and her children eat is lost forever. And so the Dendra or her work to preserve the minds and the mysteries of mortals before death claims them. We hold their shrill little thoughts in our minds and let them tumble around as they will. He shivers. It feels marvelous. And I have some questions about the Dendra or her. Lovely, he says. This may surprise you, but we rarely get curious visitors. Most people seem quite nervous about us. He wets his cracked lips and awaits your questions with polite interest. How do you preserve humanity's knowledge? Oh, I thought everyone knew that, she says, surprised. We eat the flesh and organs of corpses to assimilate their minds, then... He trails off, noticing your expression. What? I was more interested in the process than your methods, because they're already known. Ah, fellow scholar, he says. Well, it's quite simple and impossibly complex at the same time. He points to the various hoses and chambers adorning his robes. We do not chew on the corpses, of course. That would be quite messy and lethal, most likely. Humans are a diseased bunch. Our suits liquefy dead flesh, extracting the information contained within. When we feed upon this enriched flesh, it becomes part of us. At any rate, we scour the streets for bodies left unclaimed. We bring them here and lay them upon the biers. His sweeping hand directs your attention to the still shrouded figures lying about the chamber. When a body is ripe with unplucked secrets, we gather about it and taste it together. Let a lifetime of thoughts flit around us like little fish. Oh, like in that... Oh, yeah. That fountain on the government square. He smacks his lips happily. Interesting. Oh, it is, he says, and dangerous, of course. It does drive us all the slightest bit mad. He purses his lips like he's given away a naughty secret. But it's worth it even so. How long have the Dendra or her existed? Centuries, he declares. Though how many I couldn't say. We aren't devoted to paper records, as you might imagine. We prefer keeping them in our heads. Stomachs. He runs his tongue along the edge of his rotting teeth also, and this is slightly embarrassing. None of us managed to eat our founder. He simply disappeared one day. Can you imagine? Who founded your cult? A man named Melmoth Leviarm, he says and sighs. I do wish one of us had managed to eat him. And aside, Google Melmoth. It's a prominent figure called Melmoth the Wanderer of the Romantic Age, 18th and 19th century. A man who lived like very, very long and would not die. Would go from lifetime to lifetime, always preparing a new fate for show, but still living on and on. So I love that story already because they involved Melmoth, which I have read. It's a great book too. You can read it. It's an old book, but it's really great to read. It's a scary story, all right. It's a really scary story, and yeah, maybe you could read it. But let's go back to the Dendra or her. What does your cult name mean anyway? The old man's eyes dart from side to side and he leans in. Nobody knows, he whispers delighted. It's a mystery. Isn't that wonderful? What is... we can only ask again. So, but let's ask again about Melmoth. Melmoth Leviarm, he says with a grand gesture. Lovely name, isn't it? Just lovely. I want to talk about something else. Now let's go for the sculptor. He has waited so long. A sculptor told me that your people may have found a man killed by a strange creature. Yes, he says, I believe I know the poor man. Dry as a leaf, hollow as an eggshell, barely any mind left in there at all. He clucks his tongue. Inspect him at your leisure. He's the one with the charred skin on his brow. Now, I don't know much more about him, he says, chuckling, though I can assure you we plumbed the depths of his mind and body for answers. But I seem to recall seeing him before, possibly not through my eyes, mind you, in Cliff's Edge. He was coming out of a building near the chirurgical parlor. Interesting. This is just the building where Loss of Self had been too, I think. I'm helping Folsom investigate some trouble in the Underbelly. Can I ask you some questions too? Of course, he says, and do tell Folsom hello from me. We are dear friends. He raises a finger. Well, he frowns more than I smile, but we do have a grand time whenever we meet, which is often. One of Folsom's protégés was murdered. Do you know anything about it? Not a thing, he says, then grins. Why, am I a suspect? Maybe, we don't know. Keeping your own counsel, he says, nodding sagely. Very wise, very, very wise. I'd like to question your acolytes. Would that be all right? Can't allow it, I'm afraid, he says with a thin smile, not without reason. They're young and easily distracted from the path I've laboriously carved before them. Perhaps another time. Are you sure you don't know anything about the murder of Folsom's protégé? I don't, he says. I wish I did. Even in the best of times, Folsom is such a surly dinner companion. I can only imagine his mood now. And what dinner would that be? Does he also eat dead people? I'm done talking about my investigation for now. So soon, very well, and farewell. Take care, take great care. Oh, well, probably this is the man of the Sorrow Sculptor, right? So a strong aroma of charred flesh rises from the dingy cloth over this corpse. Lift the shroud. You carefully move the shroud to the side. There's no way around it. This dead man was a cast-off, and it would be hard for him to be deader. His flesh is papery, desiccated. His tattoo, or rather the charred remains of it, has burned through his skin and into the bone beneath. And of course, there is the matter of his charred eye sockets and his horrified gaping mouth. Parts of the corpse are missing, remnants of an aborted Dendra feast. You aren't surprised they stopped. Touch the tattoo. The last thing you remember before your fingertip grazes the tattoo is a rising buzz. Time stutters and breaks. Panting softly, you awaken, leaning against the bier for support. Your arm burns, your temples throb, and white static claws at the corners of your vision. Someone was screaming in that lightless, timeless void. You remember that watch much, but it wasn't you. None of the Dendra are looking your way. Examine the cast-off's corpse again. Again, your eyes are drawn to the remnants of the cast-off's tattoo. It looks like it burst into flame when he died, burning right through his skin into the skull beneath. And we'll leave the skull alone, the corpse too. We're impaired also now, so before we go to the sculptor now, I'd say this is a good time for a pause. So thank you for watching. Please come again next time. when we talked to Sophie, the Sorrow Sculptor, about the strange thing we found out while examining another cast-off's corpse. So, thank you for watching. Happy gaming to you. This is Immanuel Can signing out.